Welcome to Thought Crimez, baby.
Welcome to Thought Crimez, everyone. This is your girl, Sincere.
And I am Prince Solomon.
So we're going in to talk about Jeff Sessions' 3 strikes law. Some people want to disband it and move on, but Jeff Sessions thinks it should stick around. And of course, he's a big advocate of the war on drugs. He's quietly trying to extend it, even though the states are actually, to a degree, trying to remove themselves with that a strategy pertaining to the war on drugs, with either having marijuana be legalized, medical marijuana, or recreational marijuana, or both. You have some states that are at least decriminalizing certain drugs, but good old Jeff Sessions doesn't want that. How do you feel about that, Prince?
We're not all that surprised. We did a video, several videos, even before the induction of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, about the potential candidates for Donald Trump's administration. And we told a lot of people where this would be going. And this was at the time when people were fixated on Donald Trump's pariah-like personality, his persona, his energy. And some of them were a little bit okay. They were hopeful. They were optimistic. And we basically said there's nothing to be optimistic about when it comes to what the Trump administration represents. It represents a resuscitation in the corporate state. That's what it means. Donald Trump's administration is a resuscitation in the corporate state agenda, and people have to understand that and accept it. He has more CEOs in his cabinet than any other president in history. He also is exclusively predicated on the ideology of deregulating a lot of the restrictions that are preventing some of these corporations from being complete sharks on the citizens, right? So that also includes the prison industrial complex, which has been suffering for different reasons, but mainly due to a lower population influx in the index than previously noted before. So when we go to Jeff Sessions, who is very extreme in his belief of the state.
Across the board.
His religion is the state. All right. As we saw with, Coretta Scott King in her letter that she warned about a person like Jeff Sessions and what he represents and everything that her husband fought against.
Big government.
Yeah. And again, I'm always going to say this when we bring up Jeff Sessions. This is the same guy that persecuted former civil rights leaders and activists and people who just casually participated in that march as well, in their old age, their seniorhood as well. So he has a grudge. He has an incessant, deviant, miscreant behavior when it comes to his appraisal of the state. So, of course, Jeff Sessions would be extremely interested in maintaining the 3 strikes law because he is for the big state, big government. And the reason why they went with him, because not too many people were familiar with Jeff Sessions, especially outside of the South. He's a name I'm familiar with growing up in the South. But initially, Rudy Giuliani was on the table for Attorney General. But Rudy Giuliani, even though he always says I was America's mayor during 9/11, that couldn't hide the stench of his his predator-like behavior pertaining to the state. So people were like, they weren't feeling him. So Jeff Sessions was able to be kind of a left hook that a lot of people nationally did not see or understand who he was and what he represents. So he's always going to be pressing for the overreaching of the state. That's his religion.
And that's on point. That's why we also want to give congratulations to Atlanta Black Star. They keep putting out amazing articles and doing their jobs as a journalist. Mm-hmm. Cecilia Smith is the person who wrote the article 3 Strikes Law. Mm-hmm. Law could soon be a thing of the past, but not if Sessions has something to say about it. Mm-hmm. And of course, Sessions is Attorney General. So basically in the article, just to give you a bit of it, it states here, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is back at it again after quietly waging a second war on drugs. He has now turned his sights to criminal sentencing reform, firmly standing against the Sentencing Reform and Corrections Act, despite bipartisan support in Congress. Now, some people may be wondering, well, what is the Sentencing Reform and Correction Act? Well, basically what it is, it would eliminate the infamous 3 strikes mandatory life in prison rule, Also, it would reduce mandatory minimum sentences for drug crimes and give judges more leeway during the sentencing process for nonviolent offenders. Some people, through their misunderstanding of the previous bill pertaining to the 3 strikes rule, they thought that most judges just were being harsh. But because of the law and because of that policy, it actually made it tough for a judge to even have enough room to give somebody leeway that they felt should have gotten it. What sentencing reform and the Correction Act will do is give those judges the leeway of saying, well, this person didn't harm anyone. This was a self-crime. This person is damaging themselves. I want this person to go, to a rehabilitation center. Yeah. That's my mandatory for that person.
Right.
So those options were taken off the table. But with this new act that is bipartisan and is being pushed by the majority of Republicans and Democrats, Jeff Sessions isn't having it.
Yeah, Jeff Sessions, and it was great points that you was bringing up as well. And as Sin stated, Atlanta Black Star is always on point, and shouts out to Cecilia Smith, did a wonderful job. But again, we have to understand where this is going. I mean, we've seen what's going on with the internet. We even seen it under Bush and under Obama, where we've seen the police departments become more militarized. They're moving to alternative weapons as well that they claim are non-lethal, but in many cases they are still lethal. We see an overreaching of the state. We see more draconian policies that are being slid through. Even though the illusion of an actual conflict between Republicans and Democrats, there's still, one hand washes the other. And I know it's become cliche to state that, but the reason why it's cliche because it's true. So again, Donald Trump is there as well as the people he selected. They are there, again, to resuscitate the prison industrial complex. That's what they're there for. So this is why Attorney General Jeff Sessions is unrelenting in his approach. And in many cases, even in his language, he comes across psychotic how he's even describing the citizens. So he always has had a hard on with the idea of imprisoning citizens, so just like what he said about marijuana, he felt that people should be doing hard time for marijuana. Again, and these are old fogies, but they are pro-police state. They are pro-police union. We see what happens when they, in a mockingly fashion, basically laughing and sadistically ridiculing Black Lives Matter and opting in to launching their own version in a spoof-like but deadly version called Blue Lives Matter. So it's like a giant sadistic joke, but this is their goal. And that's why we tell people a lot of times the midterm elections was important.
So important.
It is important to make sure you have people positioned in your local level so they can, at the very least, be a buffer between you and any draconian policies being handed down from the federal level. Yep. Texas has a notorious reputation for other reasons, but what I will say, when they don't agree with the federal level and the way certain cities are structured, when people put in buffers between them and the federal state, there's a conflict there. When we have a very apathetic nature when it comes to politics and policies and just say, oh, it is what it is, then we're going to have more Jeff Sessions. This is how we have a Donald Trump, and this is how things can keep pushing in this direction. And we know with these type of policies, their first line of target will always be Black people.
And that's why focusing on Congress is extremely important, because Congress right now is a buffer against Jeff Sessions in this particular topic, because who you vote for locally will save your life at the end of the day, or it will destroy it. Mm-hmm. You have Republican Senator, Grassley, who's also in agreement with Democratic Senator from Vermont, Patrick. Now, these two people on other policies may disagree, but on this particular issue, they do, as most of everyone else in Congress who are Republican or Democrat. They want to see reform right now because a lot of people in their states are pressuring them to have reform. And this is why we said local elections matter. Do research on each politician. Mm-hmm. There may be a politician, Democrat, Republican, who may have everything you agree with except for when it comes to abortion. You yourself have to weigh in where hits you the most and what you focus on the most. What is the most important thing to you? And that's what we're saying when it comes to local elections. Even though the Democrats and the Republicans are corrupt, even though even behind the scenes, because people forget there's a hand that even pulls their strings.
The deep state. The
deep state. Just like, remember, the FBI Hoover used to try to pull different politicians who, let's say they wanted to get rid of redlining. Mm-hmm. Well, then he has a file on them. They was jerking off to a hooker. So then that person, changed their vote in their stance based off of that. So those type of things still do exist. That's why you have to do research on your politicians. You have to do research on the people you put into Congress. The Senate is extremely important. The House of Representatives, extremely important. You have to focus on local elections. It will save you. So right now, for this particular issue, both Republicans and Democrats are being the buffer to Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, and there you have it, folks. So we'll make sure we have the link to the article so you all can go through and read and research on your own and see what it is you can do in your local area as well to keep abreast on these things. And I know many of our listeners who have been affected by 3 strikes, both men and women, are more than likely going to be very interested in this. And again, it's everything we stated about Jeff Sessions, everything we stated about the Trump administration, and it was nothing having to do with gloom and doomers. Being a realist and understanding the elements in the room does not make you a negative Nancy. If you choose to ignore those things, that makes you idiotic, okay? And that makes you necessarily complicit to tyranny. So, these are the things that need to be taken serious about it. And again, Jeff Sessions looking to maintain the 3 strikes law.
Leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit that bell, that notification. Click on always so you can see our live streams and when we upload a new video. And don't forget to subscribe to Thought Crimez and also share us. We're on Black Spot. We're on Black Spot TV, of course, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on and so forth. And we're out.
Peace.
Go to our Patreon for more. And don't bother me. Are you tired of the same ridiculous corporate-backed videos trending over original content creators?
This is the real Alex Jones, as you can see.
Pants, poopy pants, poopy pants.
Then join Black Spot TV. Free from the chains of silly censorship and biased algorithms. You can share, explore, and view content by people like you. Black Spot TV.
What business are you in?
I make my bread and butter. I'm pushing.
What business are you in?
I make my bread and butter. I'm pushing.